Hi, this is James O'Keefe of Massachusetts Pirate Party, and I'm joined today by Joseph Honorowski, who's our treasurer. I'm captain of the Massachusetts Pirate Party. Thank you very much for joining us for this week's Massachusetts Pirate Party news. We've been away for a couple of weeks, and now we're back. So, how are things going, Joe?
I can't complain. In fact, there's actually not that much news going on in terms of really serious news, but I mean, there are a couple events that just happened. Extinction Rebellion just happened. What was it, Friday?
That's correct. They had a protest in Boston as part of Earth Day to continue to draw people's attention to the fact that we're rapidly barreling down a very, very hot world that we haven't seen in, I don't know, 50 million years. So,
Yeah, it's been a while since things were this toasty. And yeah, we're not doing anything about it, which is also equally terrifying. Unfortunately we weren't able to make the event, but our hearts and minds were definitely with all of our human family down there trying to make changes. So
and we look forward to the new events that they have planned. For events for us on May 13th in Lowell, starting at noon, we're going to have our spring conference. It'll be our first in-person conference in about 3 years. So if you're interested in coming, there's links in the description for finding out the location, telling us you're going to come. And even if you want to speak at it, please, by all means, just give us a heads up so we know. It's also going to be we're going to have food. Folks are welcome to bring food, and we'll have a cookout. So please come out, have fun, and join us.
yeah, we'll definitely be cooking out there. We got charcoal, and I believe we're getting a gas stove too. But if you want to participate in that or bring food, and then I would just email the Massachusetts list and at info@masspirates.org in order to confirm what you're bringing. So that way we all know.
Sounds good. Thanks, Joe. So we want to encourage folks to think about Earth Day and figure out what they can do to prevent the climate catastrophe we're facing, whether that's, preferably going out, being active, going to your neighbors and talking about the crisis that it is. We've already had some weird winter. This is a much warmer winter than we've seen even the year before. I think it was warmer than that one. 80-degree days in April is unusual, and that's days plural. So now we've got some rain, so hopefully that'll help with the drought conditions, at least for some time. What other news do we have, Joe?
So there's an international meeting coming up. And there's one bit of news that I'm a little bit hesitant on touching upon because even you and I, Jamie, seem to have different opinions on it. As we were discussing. No, but I mean, the healthy debate amongst gentlemen is much better than a debate amongst enemies. So for this week, from the Massachusetts House, the State House on Beacon Hill, there's going to be Senator Ed Markey and Representative Ayeya Presley are going to do a nationwide tour for the Supreme Court Judicial Reform. They're calling it the Just Majority campaign. And essentially what they're trying to do is reel in some of the growing concerns about unethical conduct and partisan ruling by the Supreme Court justices. including decisions on rolling back abortion and limiting gun violence prevention laws. Now, that's kind of a loaded statement because here's the thing. I think we should campaign for laws to put in a nationwide law for abortion rights and for individual autonomy and all that. That's actually one of the principles of the Pirates that really stands us apart is individual autonomy. I want to put that into law. But however, the way the thing ruled, it wasn't in law. So I kind of see how the Supreme Court, as terrible as it is, did that. Though they should have let sleeping dogs lie, but the fact of the matter is we should now go ahead and put that into law so that that's actual law, and then that's the law of the land. Then the other part is the Second Amendment, and this is the part that me and Jamie were discussing right before this video, and really seeing that we have vastly different opinions on it. Jamie, would you like to explain your stance?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the fact that 60% of all gun deaths are suicides. And the number of, over 1,000 people every year are killed by cops. And the single largest cause of death for children is gun violence. And I always like whenever there's a shooting, a mass shooting, I always come back to there was only nation where this happens says there's nothing we can do about it. Is the joke article, and you can look at Japan. You can look at Germany, you can look in Canada, and none of these countries have the degree of gun violence that we do. And indeed, Massachusetts tends not to because we have some of the stronger laws. And
I respectfully object about Canada. They wouldn't be violent even if you try and make them violent. That's that's Canada. You
well,
would punch them in the face
against Nazis in
and
World
they'd be
War
like,
II, so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, go.
I was just going to say, you could punch a Canadian in the face and be like, hey, what was that for, mate? Hey? I love you, Canadians. Some of my best friends are Canadian. That's why I can get away with that.
We love our neighbors to the north. But we have a gun problem. We certainly have a healthcare problem. I mean, there are people who get guns who aren't getting the mental health care that they need. But literally, there was a whole spate of someone accidentally drove into someone's driveway, and then they're like, oh, wrong place, we'll turn around and leave, and they get shot at, or an African-American, teen went and knocked on, actually, he hadn't even knocked on someone's door when the person shot at him through the door. And so I don't understand why people would do that, why people would fear just someone knocking on your door. Like, if they're going to break into your house, they tend not to knock on your door, right? They tend to wait till you're asleep or when you're ideally not there if they want to go and rob. Because, you could have a gun or even something, they could have to get into a fight, and that could be unpleasant. So you'd rather break into someone's house when they're not there.
Jamie,
yeah,
can I retort to that single point, though?
Yeah.
Because I think that was a disgusting event. And I think the fact that that person took away another person's life, they should feel the full weight of the law upon them.
But that doesn't save the person who got shot and died. I mean, I hear you, but that's done after the fact. The thing is, how do we solve these problems before?
But it wasn't the gun, it was the person. It was the person's actions. So my whole stance,
the gun, but if they didn't have a gun,
then they could have used
or a trebuchet
or a cannon.
Well, they can't unless they make them themselves, they're not allowed to have cannons, right?
But
Cannons are
can I point?
prohibited. Machine guns are prohibited. You know,
You're allowed to.
we've agreed that certain weapons you can't have. Mortars, you're not supposed to have mortars. No field artillery. You know, these are things that aren't allowed.
You can actually own a tank.
You
You
can
can
own
own
a
a cannon.
tank, but it cannot be. You can only run someone down with it. You can't shoot them with it.
Oh my god, that reminds me of Bulldozer Man from a while back. But
I'm
I'd
thinking
have
of
to
a fish
say,
called Wanda, but yeah.
I would have to say, I mean, there was that dude that ate that other dude's face. I mean, people do crazy things all the time. I mean, if you take away one medium, the humans are resourceful and creative, and they will come up with new ways in which to do terrible things to each other. So I think it's more about addressing the elephant in the room, which is the mental health crisis that we currently have. Um,
But
and
wait. I hear that, and I hear you on that. I'm not disagreeing with you. We have a mental health crisis, and we need to deal with it, and that comes with state funding. But we have other countries that don't have these problems, and they do have, say, national health care, and some don't have national health care, but they don't have this epidemic of gun violence, so or even violence, right? I mean, it's still like this: the single largest cause of death of children is guns.
mm, I mean, again, I can't speak to that, but I know that a large part of this equation is it's hard to just focus on one part and see the whole equation. And I do agree with the laws that we have here in Massachusetts. You get very well vetted. It's very important that you get trained. Massachusetts has the lowest school shooting rates in the entire country, but it's not zero. So I agree with you that even though we really have it locked down, um, and I agree with every single thing that has ever been explained to me about it, and I agree with all the training, there's still a fundamental right. That there's a reason why we should have the guns, and that is to stop tyranny. And that tyranny takes many forms. You know, the whole reason why I became political was to fight the good fight. Do I expect to win the good fight? No, but I expect to at least hopefully buy another day for that fight to continue for the good, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Go on. Sorry.
an important piece of that puzzle is, unfortunately, the sacrifice that it takes to have something like that be mandatory. Um, because the moment the population gets disarmed, that's when bad things happen. That's when the far right takes over. You know, that's when tyranny can rear its ugly head. And that fundamental piece, I can tell you that when you go through the whole process here in Massachusetts, when you're getting your renewal, you have to sign an affidavit about that you've never lost any guns. And I can tell you, there's no way that I'm accidentally losing a gun, because that would be like losing a kid. I wouldn't be that irresponsible. And I think a big part of where the irresponsible are getting it is, one, the vetting process is not good enough, or B, there's not enough training, or C, some wombo combo of the two. And and again, you spoke to the high suicide rate amongst gun owners, and that's because it's just an easy medium. In other countries, like, there's a drink that you can drink and be all done, and in some ways where they don't, like in Brazil, they have this drink that they can drink, and for that's their preferred. The suicide way. If they don't have guns, they have knives. They have all sorts of different ways to do it. It's just a medium by which. So again, I bring it back to the mental health crisis that, it's those kids who have lost or fallen into that. No better word other than using psychological terms, but like fallen into the shadow or into that dark place where you just see the entire world as bad, and it's not. So it's making sure that we have the support of healthcare, we have the support of making sure that we have that UBI, making sure that we have a means so that things are not so desperate, things are not so bleak, so not so dark that they can't come back. You know, I am totally against the nanny state, but I am also against letting a single soul slip through the cracks. You know, I mean, look at the catastrophe that is California with the homeless population. And just as bad as we made an incarceration system, just as bad as we made that situation out in California. But if you follow the money, you follow what's going on with it, you know. So, do I have all the answers on this? No. But at least I have an inkling of the direction we should be going. You know, I know which way the sun is setting. So,
we need housing for people who are homeless, which is part of our pirate policy.
Yeah, housing, making sure, again, housing, mental health care, individual autonomy, being able to make the right decisions, making sure the support structures are there so you can make the right decisions, you know, and really just getting rid of a lot of the BS laws that just don't make any sense, like ending the war on drugs because
Or criminalizing sex work.
Or exactly, or just all the things that made to the books that just were used to suppress a certain class of individual or
File
another.
Sharers.
I'm sorry, what?
File sharers.
Yeah, exactly. Remember when the internet was free and open and this bountiful new place that we were just exploring?
Mm. Now it's walled. Let me just say, if I can,
Of course.
if you are watching this show and you feel like you have suicidal thoughts, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or text HOME or HOME to 741-741. If you're trans, there's 1-877-565-8860. If you're an LGBTQ youth, there's 866-488-7386. And finally, if you're a veteran, you can call 800-273-8255 and press 1. There are options, and you should. We encourage you to call and get help that you need, because you are a wonderful person and you are deserving of assistance. So please make the call.
And if I could just add into that, I mean, thank you, Jamie, for that. But there's also, especially in Massachusetts, but I know nationwide, there's all sorts of initiatives. If you're looking to change your life, change your career, there's always a way to find the education that you need. There's always a way. There's a million different entrepreneurial programs. If your dream is to go into building a business or building a nonprofit, or there's places you can go to learn and get the skills you need. If you want to do YouTube videos, oh my God, we could so use some help. But, there's always that place, right, that you can go and start building your life the way you want it to be. There's no reason to give in to the darkness or give up all hope. No matter how bleak things seem, so long as you're on the right side of the grass. So
one thing I'll just say additionally about Senator Markey and Representative Presley's nationwide tour is that, we've seen with the revelations from the Supreme Court from the court system in general, of various activist judges, like in the case of Mifid Pristone down in Texas, who went and literally pulled a ruling out of his ass, as far as I could tell. Like, I don't understand how you as a judge can go and use a blog that is explicitly looking for anti-abortion stories and say that that's somehow representative of all of the women who use mifepristone. I don't understand how Clarence Thomas can be getting jaunts off to different places at the on the dime of a billionaire, or how the same billionaire could buy his mother's home at an inflated price, and he doesn't even need to report that. I mean, that sounds like unethical behavior, and he should be removed from that. So, removed from the Supreme Court, because he literally is not acting as an impartial judge. And so, as they do their tour, Joe and I can disagree about guns, and I hear his side and he hears my side. But we agree on bodily autonomy. We agree on the fact that we have precedent, and those precedents are important and should not just be willy-nilly thrown out because Trump managed to get 3 people on the Supreme Court to vote his way. So we need to change things with the Supreme Court, because we're facing a climate crisis. We're facing so many issues that if we have a bunch of conservative justices who like what happened during the early Roosevelt administration and tried to shoot everything down, saying, no, you can't do that, the Constitution prevents you, when it's really their ideology that tries to prevent them, our kids are not going to forgive us if we don't deal with the climate crisis that we're facing, and they would rather get rid of the EPA. So, sorry, Joe, I grandstanded there.
No, it's not a problem. And I agree with a lot of what you're saying. As far as the statistics go, we are a fact-based organization, so we follow the statistics, we follow the numbers, because oftentimes science allows us to see beyond what our prejudices would have us see. That's part of the reason why I love Pirates so much, is because we're willing to, even if we don't agree with the data, we're willing to look at the data and say, hey, here's what's really going on here. And that has always been a core part of every single pirate I've ever talked to. We could feel strongly about something, but again, we can have that debate, we can have that honest discussion, we can look at the numbers and look at the science. So, and Jamie, you're right. There is something that we have to do about gun violence and about violence and about making our communities safe, because we care about our communities. That's what we have to do. We might have different methodologies, but that doesn't mean we care any less about our communities. And you know what? I am 100% for extra training for our officers, training them on how to deal with, say, those with mental conditions, those with autism, those with ADHD, those with life crises, and all that training them on how to basic EMT training, making sure they're CPA certified, and spending that little bit of extra in our police departments to make sure that they are that city's best, they are that state's best people. They deserve the training. They do. We think about how much training they get. It's really like, go through this 2-month class. Here's your badge. Good luck out there. When really they should be taking retired police officers and using them to come in and give classes on a regular basis and do departments and things like that. There's so much more we could be doing to bring a better quality officer to our streets. And if we're under supporting them, who's going to ever want to do that job? The worst. So, we should be supporting our officers. That's my 2 cents.
And we should be supporting our officers by encouraging them not to kill people.
Well, I mean that
I mean,
that goes with those officers who are poorly trained, who don't know what they're doing, or they're power tripping. You know,
the
because
system, but the system promotes those cops.
exactly.
That's the problem. I mean, cops who bend the rules, cops who are more violent, those are the ones that get promoted, right? There's a systemic problem that's going on there. And while I completely agree with you that cops need to have adequate training, we also have a problem where cops think of themselves as separate from the society they're ostensibly protecting. And we have a Supreme Court that basically said they can kill people, and unless it's incredibly egregious, you can't do anything about it. And that's not right. That's not constitutional, right?
100%
There's
agree.
nothing in the
Yeah.
Constitution that says cops are above the law. But yet, the Supreme Court has said both that cops don't need to know the law, that they can make up laws and arrest people for them. And if they harm someone or kill someone, they're not responsible. I mean, that encourages people who are irresponsible to get into that because they know there's no ramifications if they mess up. And that means that good cops, the ones who are doing it, are discouraged from being there because they see people beating people up, shooting people, engaging in illegal activities and not getting caught. So it's more systemic, but my 2 cents, Joe.
Well, and I'm not disagreeing with a lot of the power mongering and any of that. I am not disagreeing with that at all. But I do have to say that there are a lot of officers that I've gotten to know over the years. Not that I'm an officer. I'm not police, never have been, never will be. But I've known a lot of them. I've met a lot of them who do a phenomenal job and who are really good human beings. And, there's always that small percentage, that would be absolutely terrible, which is part of the reason why body cam, doing a public office, a body cam is important,
Agreed.
and having those instantaneously public knowledge would also be a step in the right direction. However, I also see that could ruin investigations. So I think that maybe we should put a time window on when body cams become public record because they are public servants. But again, it's such a gray area. Where do we start? So we're going to leave that discussion for you folks in the comments. So please help feed that algorithm, like, share, and subscribe. And let's keep this discussion going.
Thanks, folks. Take care, Joe. We're clear.